because we know each other. Are there any agenda revisions for tonight?
We should probably add the Gloria Gardner thing.
Under new business?
Yeah, under new business.
Well, or communications, either one.
You have the letter for 60th as part of the agenda, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I have a comment on that when we get there.
Okay, well, where do we want to put Gloria stuff, under new business or
Oh, crap.
communications? Oh, crap.
Well, communications doesn't have much else to report, so that's fine with me.
That Ed.
Let's put it in new business. It fits better there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Do we need to do something official about adopting that draft budget, or can we just flow along until we decide that it's going to work? Or, you know, makes me a little nervous that we haven't really adopted it.
Oh,
I'm good with adopting it. We can make sure that's in the treasurer's report.
Yep.
Okay. I've gotten one person responding to my president's or chairman's quarter from the newsletter, and she wants to be part of the brainstorming of conversation, how we move forward.
Okay, great.
So that will be under new business too.
so I'm sorry, I was distracted. I was getting the YouTube live stream audio. It was, and so what do we want to add to new business?
We've got the
Letter to the editor?
letter to the editor, and we have how the discussion on how we move forward, given that we have my letter to the neighborhood saying we have these discriminatory practices, how should we move forward? And I've already gotten one person asking to participate in that brainstorming process.
So brainstorming, or yeah,
Say what?
Ed's got it.
I've got it.
Yeah.
What happened to Jeff?
I'm here.
You still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There you
There he
are.
is.
Do we have another one? That's two. Move forward, discriminatory process, letter to the editor. Is that it?
Good. Anything else?
I think that should cover it.
You got a motion to adopt it, the agenda as modified?
So move.
Second.
Okay, who seconded that? Is that Jeff?
That was Jeff, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Got it, passed. Okay, we have minutes for July 7th. I'm sure everyone has read them.
Yep.
Are there any edits to those minutes?
I'll bring up a copy here. I just changed a couple of things as soon as, I guess I have to share this now. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn,
Go.
I must tell you, it's quite phenomenal to watch how your hair gets shorter and longer all the time. It just,
It's extremely.
this
it's-
virtual background drop that keeps on eating your hair.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's my hair is well below my shoulders now, but I'm wanting to do something about that sooner than.
I don't know if you can see it in the screen, how it keeps on disappearing.
Oh,
She's in zero gravity there, that's why.
Every time you lean back, you get
That's
short
right.
hair, and then you
Maybe-
lean forward and it shows back up.
maybe if I'd sit still.
So I think for the minutes, I just embellished this section here on E here. I added a little more. I brought the information from Allison for the last meeting, and I just added it here. I didn't have any other. It looked great, Jennifer. So
Hey, Ed, I saw that physical is spelled incorrectly.
what?
Physical's got an extra Y.
Something, oh yeah, okay. Thank you.
Bingo.
Like to
That's
contribute.
Do we
Anybody
know
else
what
have-
PPP grants are?
Oh, there's something having to do with the CARES Act, and I don't remember exactly. I knew,
Oh,
paycheck
paycheck protection plan.
that's it.
Okay. Interesting. Is that possible to do even though Sweeney might have gotten in trouble? Southwest Neighborhoods got in trouble for getting reimbursed for funding?
Well, I think they were only going to apply if the city council did not pass the budget. So it became moot when the city council passed the budget.
But isn't the
Okay.
city council going to review the budget again later this month to possibly
know.
make some cuts?
Don't
I hadn't
know.
heard.
Is it relevant to the minutes?
No.
Okay. All
Okay,
right, let's move on then.
so do we have a motion for the minutes as amended?
I move.
Okay, Jennifer
I'll
moved.
move to approve.
I will a second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, you passed.
Okay, we'll get
Next,
rid
we
of that.
have our treasurer's report.
Okay.
Things were just really moving. Not.
Not, well, actually, on that not point, I just got a call from Joe.
Yes,
Did you hear about what was going on there?
yes.
Okay, I'll let you disclose all that.
Where's there?
Well, Kim, if you just got it from her, you might want to go on with it, but there was a problem with some additional monies showing up in Hollywood Neighborhood Association's account that they had no idea where it came from.
Like $1,500.
Yeah, 1,300, 1,500, something like that.
Wow.
And she told me that they haven't been able to balance their checkbook for a couple of years. Oh boy. Anyhow, they were going to investigate, and they figured it was probably for the playground project. Did they find out that for sure?
Yes, it was.
It was. So they're taking care of getting it transferred over to them.
Yes.
Okay.
It was quite amazing that, you know, the bank goes through such detail about who is talking on the phone and who has access, and all of a sudden money is being thrown into their account. So
Yeah.
it worked out.
Good. So as you can see, we had the food bank award was done immediately after our meeting last time. Ed negotiated a nonprofit promotional deal for the Zoom. So we got $45 back almost.
Hey,
And we got our whopping 41 cents in interest. So that 92.77 is the current balance in the bank.
That's great. That's
Yep.
pretty good interest.
mm-hmm. All those dimes count.
Okay. Now, do we have
And then there's another form that is the budget to
approved?
current. And that's where we'll be able to look at it and see what the budget is. So
I'm working on it, Richard.
I know.
Stall. Tell Joe.
Saul. Tell us a story about the chess club.
We're planning to get it all virtual, and it's going
Are
to be
you?
really interesting to see how that works. So that, yep, we're getting okay. Here it goes. This is a draft budget. So the far to right columns can be ignored as far as what we were looking at. So the budget itself is just that column that ends in the 10,050 income. And if you scroll down the edge, you come up with 10,061 expenses. All of this is on who knows what's going to be happening. So we're going to try and do this and try and do that. So there it is.
Well done.
Thank you.
Do we want to approve this for the upcoming fiscal year as a projection based on the best information available?
I think that would be wise to do.
I move that we approve this as a speculative budget based on the best information available at this time.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay. Motion and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, so it passes.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I'm glad we are not in the situation that Hollywood is in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What situation is Hollywood in?
They haven't balanced their checkbook in over a year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do we have any more information from CNN at this point? Since we're
Well,
not
apparently the
holding-
budget got approved, right?
1 year,
for 1 year.
but again, like I said earlier, the city council has to take some money out of their total budget. So we don't know what's going to happen either
There,
later this month or September.
Yeah, true.
So do you know when that is scheduled?
Do I know? For some reason, August sometime this month sticks in my mind, but I'm not positive.
I thought it was rather early. I thought it was later this week, but don't remember for
Well,
sure.
there's a meeting tomorrow, but I don't remember seeing it on the agenda. RIP's on the agenda for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Although somebody has told me that's been pulled too, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I was told today that it is, the RIF is on the agenda, but they're not taking public testimony.
That is true. But Mary Ann told me that Morgan redacted something, and so they pulled it off. But it's still on there as far as I can tell on the written agenda.
Okay. Okay, under new business, can we move on? New business, we've got a response from Gail. I forwarded this to you folks. And this is Gloria Gardner. Excuse me. Gloria Gardner, not Gail.
Okay.
Hi, Tamara, blah, 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 blah. She said the newsletter looks good. And congratulations to all who produced and contributed to it. How about adding the section for letters to the editor like a newspaper? And she went ahead and posted the following. I would like to submit a letter regarding the destruction of George Washington statue at Northeast 57th, Alameda and Sandy. George Washington and most of the other founding fathers were slave owners, and Washington was one of those who didn't free his slaves upon his death. We got that posted. However, that doesn't justify the vandalism of private city property nowhere near the protests. In addition to toppling over the statue to the ground and damaging its base, vandals destroyed a concrete waste container and vandalized the city traffic signal box. As we know from non-fake news media, there was a small minority of protesters who were in downtown every night with peaceful protesters. They were there apparently to antagonize the police, get media attention, and cause or escalate protester and police violence. I doubt that George Floyd's death was their motivation. Every protest in Portland in recent years has attracted a minority of people who are not peaceful. This minority succeeded in its apparent objectives. Peaceful protesters are subjected to injury from unmarked federal personnel pulled off the street into unmarked vehicles, all without probable cause and not on federal property. The justification of the Federal Department of Homeland Security for sending in these officers was to protect federal property, specifically the federal courthouse building. These federal officers sent to Portland went way beyond the scope of their legitimate duties. Likewise, whoever destroyed the Washington statue on private property 4 or 5 miles east of the federal courthouse committed criminal acts with no legal justification. Sincerely, Gloria Gardner.
Just information, Gloria was a board member for a number of years sometime in the past.
Oh, thanks, Ed.
Kelly, was she on the board when you were
She
chair?
was.
Okay.
So this is laden with a bit of political drama and stuff like that. If we do allow letters to the editor, what should we do and how should that be done? Anyway.
The first question I have is when I write a letter to the editor for the newspaper, they do and can edit it.
Yep.
And, you know, I mean, just words or something. And looking at her particular letter, I generally agree with what she's saying, with an exception of one fact that may or may not be true. And that's the fact that the federal officers had people in the crowd identifying some of these vandals and whatnot, and they would pick them up later on, maybe even the next night or 2 nights later. And that's why you saw the van, for example, that was not unmarked. They were picking up somebody that they had identified earlier. And I guess this was standard procedure, and it's not very well known that that was taking place. So whether that part of her letter is correct or not, I don't know. Other than that, I didn't see anything really wrong with it.
For me, the issue is, do we want to, sorry, Jennifer, you're next. We want a letter to the editor section. Is that what we're geared towards? That takes a lot of moderation. There's a lot of other platforms where people can express their opinions, including next door in this neighborhood. That's the question for me, is the fairness in the media doctrine was repealed, but still there's an issue. Do you present both sides? Oregonian typically presents a letter on both sides. To me, it's quicksand to get into a letter to the editor feature. That's my 2 cents. Jennifer, you were next.
My only, I completely agree with you, Ed. I think, one, we have generally such a big gap between when we require submissions and when the publications go out, that the timeliness, seems to kind of get lost, where it would be maybe more appropriate in something that's like a daily or weekly publication. The other thing is, like with this one specifically, I don't think it was federal or city property that was destroyed. I think the statue was private. So we would have to do a lot of fact checking. And I don't know that anybody, I know how much work Lynn is putting in already on the newsletter. And I don't know that we should necessarily increase that burden. We already invite people to write articles. Like, maybe that's just the form that we should maintain.
I have some pretty strong thoughts, but I'll let everybody else weigh in first.
Richard?
Okay, so Jennifer, that was one of the points I was going to make, is the timeliness of it. I don't think our newsletter is geared to do this type of a service to the community. If they really want to do something that is timely, the Oregonian is there, the Hollywood Star is there. They do occasionally do letters from the, to the editor. And I just really don't think that it's something we need to get involved in. We can say, we can let this person know that we've considered it and we're going to pass, is what I think we should do.
Kelly, your thoughts?
I agree with Richard. You know, it just doesn't seem like it's the right forum for that. I was thinking to myself, does it mean that our website could take on letters to the editor, but then that take a certain amount of time to curate that? And I decided, no, that's probably not an appropriate place either.
Thank you.
I,
Yep. Terry?
couple things. Jennifer, you said it's private property, but the statue was actually public property. But I'm concerned about space in our newsletter for one thing. And I think that as we're discussing this also, we ought to look at what each of us may write in there and not get too political with maybe whatever report that we have to say and kind of stick to the, maybe a little more to the facts or something like that. Just because one of us could say something and we could have some disagreement from some neighborhood people that really would want to comment on that. So I'm thinking that to kind of keep it a little bit more pure from our standpoint. Does that make any sense to anybody?
It does, Terry, yeah.
Okay.
So Lynn, I think you heard from most of us.
I think so. Well, I have several thoughts on this. I have no problem with the concept of letters to the editor, but you guys bring up a really excellent point with regard to the timing. Jennifer, thanks for your thoughts and courtesy about my time, but I don't think that's the biggest part of it. This particular letter troubled me in a variety of specifics, not the least of which was, well, never mind. But my biggest concern was that I think if we're going to do letters to the editor, they need to be oriented more toward the neighborhood than the city as a whole. And even if her letter were 100% factual, which we don't know, I think it goes outside that purview. I also don't think it does. I don't know what it. I'm really not sure what purpose her letter serves other than to let her get it off her chest. And I'd rather see something that was either more neutral in content or that proffered something for people's broader general, to get input that's not something that ought to be dealt with on Facebook or Nextdoor. So I think I agree with those who said they don't think it's appropriate for the newspaper, the newsletter at this time, but I think that if we wanted to use the not neighborhood focused, we could use the neighborhood not neighborhood focused rationale if we wanted to, rather than to make it more personal,
Yeah.
or overly neutral.
My feeling is that all of these are the comments opposing having a letter to the editor are all good. And I think we should probably stay with what we are doing. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, there are a lot of other formats in which you can express your opinion. And, if I were to write a letter to the editor, I might not know when the next publication date is. And then I might be frustrated that, it either wasn't included or it wasn't included in a timely manner. And so I think the newsletter's good the way it is. And we should let, the person know that, we considered it, but it's not an option that we're going to pursue at this time.
Well, let me turn this around. What if this is just a submission to the newsletter? What would the committee then choose to do with this?
My opinion is that we reject it for the reasons I otherwise stated.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't support publishing the letter. I just think that's a pond we don't want to get into. One of the things would be maybe through CNN, look at potential liability or slander, or, you know, I mean, there's a whole myriad of concerns here that need to be addressed if we were to enter that forum.
I don't think we'd have to worry about those particular concerns, Ed, because it's clearly her opinion, and her opinion is free speech.
Well, I appreciate that, Lynn. I'd still like to get somebody who's a legal person to render for our security and safety.
Yep. But I think I'm just more concerned that it would, as you said earlier, that it would just raise a firestorm, and we don't have the energy to do that, deal with that.
Right.
You're old. Terry?
I'm wondering if we should turn it over to CNN and let them decide if they want to put it out or put some form of it out. I mean, I think all of us here are upset that the Washington statue's gone. And I know I vented in many ways, sending some emails to various people at the city. And so I'm just thinking maybe we ought to turn this over. But I'd like to be able to respond to the lady that wrote it and maybe give her a little bit of direction as to where to go with her thoughts.
Mm.
You're empowered to do that, Terry.
Well, I mean, just the Oregonian, or send it to the city council or CNN or wherever.
Terry, she's an attorney. She's very savvy.
Okay, all right. I don't know her from Adam.
He's actually a land use planner,
And the
Okay.
land use.
which isn't
Yeah.
bad. Yeah. Well, you know, this actually is a good segue into, okay, I did my president's corner, and I just, you know, I felt a real need to disclose what I found out and about our neighborhood's history and the information that I was given and am trying to process. So the fact that we are on forcibly ceded land from the Native Americans, and we are in a more white protected part of the neighborhood community. And so how do we then move forward in becoming unracist?
But I think in your article, though, you said, okay, here's what I found, here's what I'm dealing with, but how can I find some goodness, some productivity, something positive to bring out of this, as opposed to just ranting?
Right. And maybe it's just my personal soapbox. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way. So let me put that
Depends
out
on
there.
what you say, Camera. A couple of times I've thought it was. I'll be honest with you. I don't say particularly this article, but a couple times it.
I think it has a lot of truth to it.
It's
And if you have trouble with what I say, then Terry, please, you have the freedom to call me up, write me a note, whatever you want.
Submit an alternate article to the newsletter.
Oh, Jennifer, that's so good.
I like it.
Well, see, some people, I mean, I hear everybody saying privileged. I've never felt that I was privileged, because either me or my family had to work for everything we had. And I don't consider that a privilege.
We're like way off topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Terry, there's a lot that's been written about that, and it's not hard to find. Remind me later, and I'll send you some links.
So Tam, what's our direction here? Do we want to?
Well, the question is there a need for us to have a community brainstorming session about what the role of the neighborhood association is based on this information. Should we monitor listening posts? Is there, are there other activities that we could do that would help?
I think it's really worth considering. I think we need to put some thought into some pre-planning and how this would look and where the forum would be. If we get, does it happen during COVID-19? Do we do it via Zoom? Or if COVID-19 ceases to be an issue, do we do it at a general meeting? I think it's a very valid topic that requires a lot of thought ahead of time.
Mhm.
How to do it, so it doesn't just it doesn't flop around. It's got some direction, some structure, and some goals, and hopefully, if not some results, some goals to work on, and maybe assign, maybe get volunteers who will work on certain goals.
At least we'd be able to open up the dialogue.
Yeah.
I
Now,
guess
are
The
we
question I
open?
have is whether or not this should be a subgroup or the board itself to brainstorm.
I think it should be the whole board and anybody else who wants to participate. Because I
Well-
don't think you're going to have 3 dozen people.
My question is this limited within our neighborhood boundaries, or are we inviting outside the boundaries in? I mean, to me, it seems like it's something that ought to come. If we do it, it ought to come from people within the neighborhood, and not necessarily somebody that lives across town or downtown or whatever.
I agree, Terry. That's why I see it as a general meeting type topic, major topic for a general meeting at some point in the future, and invite the community at large to participate.
Mhm.
And that's why I think it needs a lot of thought and pre-planning on how to structure that.
I like that, Ed.
Make it
Yep.
meaningful for everybody who participates rather than a bunch of excuse making and yada, yada, yada arguing.
Mhm.
Like that.
And if you think about it too, Zoom, not everybody has access to a computer or Zoom. I actually know a lady that lives on 59th, and I hadn't seen her for years, and I ran into her a couple of weeks ago. I don't have a computer, she says.
Yeah, good point, Terry. We want to be inclusive.
Yeah, and people can join by phone, though. They don't have to have a computer. So that is a possibility. It's not quite as convenient, let's say, but because you'll have different voices going on. And if we have somebody on a phone, we'll have to introduce who we are before we speak. So it makes it a little bit more cumbersome.
Mhm.
So what do we have for an agenda for our October general meeting besides election of officers possibly?
Can I interject for a second? With regard to Ms. Gloria and her letter, how are we going to respond to that? If you want, I can send something as the editor or have Tam do it if that would be preferable.
Well, she sent the email to Tamara, so perhaps it's appropriate for Tamara we can help her with a reply, but you're the
Okay.
chairperson. You're the chair.
I will cobble together some thoughts after, because we did toss around some things. Lynn, maybe you can help me with that response?
I'd be delighted to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to, do we want to consider this for the October general meeting? I don't believe we have any other general meeting items at this time other than possibly electing officers. But if it's a Zoom meeting, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it might be too soon. There's a lot here, and we're still in a rapidly changing environment.
Yeah, I think it'd be better off if it was after, God help us, things settle down a little bit.
I agree with that.
Have an election and maybe there's a change in the White House and elsewhere, and the economy actually has a chance to start an upward trajectory and many things.
Many things. But I think maybe putting the call out to folks that we might even start holding some board meetings where this is a topic that we talk about. How are we going to go forward and make a change? And I wouldn't mind having some help. Maybe Ed, you can, since you came up with some good ideas, would you mind batting them around with me and we can just maybe
I'd be happy to.
work
I'd
on
be
that?
happy to. Anybody else, I don't want to exclude anybody, but, and perhaps we solicit from the members of the neighborhood.
I've already got one volunteer, Andre Treme. She helped with the survey that we did.
I remember the
Yeah.
name, yeah.
Yeah.
And
She's in there.
I'd be interested too.
Jennifer's raising her
Jennifer?
hand.
I'd also like to, and then our company like diversity person actually lives in our neighborhood too, so I might be able to
Oh.
ask her if she might be interested.
Yeah.
She's
That'd be
in
a
our
great
neighborhood.
resource.
Who's that, Jen? Lynn Shapton?
It's actually Miranda Zimmerly.
No, okay, don't know her. Okay,
She's a youngin'. Make me
Okay.
feel old.
good deal. Good deal.
Okay, so I've got myself, Ed, Jennifer, Lynn, Andre, and your friend.
Yeah, I'll see if she's got any interest in it.
Okay. We'll talk about how we can come up with some framework to work on and then move forward. At least bring that framework back to the board, say, this is what we're thinking about. What are your thoughts? Does that sound good?
You want to maybe look at that as an ad hoc committee on inclusiveness or something?
Something like that. Sound good?
Yeah,
Okay.
real good.
I think we need a vote on creating this ad hoc committee. So do we have a motion?
I move that we create an ad hoc committee to develop a program or an initiative to update the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association to current standards of inclusiveness. And anybody else got any other thoughts?
We can give it a better name later.
Getting woke, becoming more woke.
Right. Woke. Yep.
How about I say create an ad hoc committee to explore issues related to diversity within the neighborhood.
And inclusiveness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I second that Jennifer motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, got it. Next, we've got the Walker Award.
Well,
Again,
I dug this out of the history book files since Michael had requested that we consider John Schweibert. I don't know if anybody, I made it available to everybody. I don't know if anybody looked at
I
it or
read
not.
that. It was very interesting.
I did too.
Okay.
So that really changed my thoughts, because I thought about, who's this guy that we're going to honor for here? He's been downtown doing this Peace House thing for what, ages?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, this is very very appropriate, Ed. Thank you.
Probably long
Yeah.
overdue.
Yeah.
I think so. Okay,
The Peace House is at the intersection of Northeast Thompson and Northeast 18th. And
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, I rode my bike there. It's a large, impressive home that it's clear they're very active in a lot of issues, a lot of signage and things. So
excellent. Okay, so do we have a nomination?
Richard, it's your turn to nominate.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one question. Are we doing one or two awards this year?
We hadn't had a second nomination is why we were only talking about one.
Okay, so we've already had, the other one's been done.
It's
Right.
Eric.
All right.
Eric, yeah.
Eric, yes, all right. Well, I'd like to nominate John Schreibert as a Walker Award winner for, what is this year, 2020?
Okay.
I'll second. I'll
Got
second.
a second? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, so it passes. Wonderful.
And just for the record, we could go with one. We're not obligated to have more than one award recipient, but this is great.
I
Okay.
thought- Ed, clarify that for me. I thought we just now ended up with two.
We did.
We do.
Okay.
I'm just
All right.
saying, just for the record, it would have been fine if we only had one.
Okay.
Okay.
So as the person who takes care of getting all of this information together, what is my timeline? Are we going to try and do this at the October general meeting?
I think
we
that's
have
what
a-
we were talking about since the concerts went away.
Yeah, okay,
It is what we were talking about.
all right. I will take that under consideration.
Okay. And I think we should probably talk about that meeting under events, if we have the time.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Communications.
Not a whole lot to report. We
You got
canceled
it.
our meeting for lack of interest. I mean, no lack lack of agenda yesterday.
So Lynn, did you ever hear back from Helene about availability and feasibility of the, for the October newsletter of?
Not yet, but I gave her and she acknowledged that it was an early request. So I don't really expect to hear from her until September, maybe late August.
Well, yeah, hopefully August, because September, don't you start the need to have submittals and things in order to get it put together into the publisher if we're going to get it out?
Well, I need to have those regardless. So
Yeah, but
no, I'm keeping. I have it pinned to the top of my Outlook to not forget.
okay.
Okay, have we had a discussion or outreach yet to the delivery folks?
Well, I emailed Helene and asked her to after we last talked about it, emailed her and asked her if she would check with the captains and have them maybe, if appropriate, check with the crews to see how they felt about it. But we want, it made sense to wait until we get a little bit closer to mid-October to decide how they're feeling about things.
Well, one thing that I heard on NPR was discussion about the lack of community newsletters that has erupted because a lot of the print copies have run out of money, and how it is causing greater distrust and greater unrest among communities that don't get regular information.
Interesting.
And that newsletters tend to be a very positive, civilizing force for a community and resource for information. So I wanted to just put a plug in there how important it is for us to have a regular newsletter, and how I think we're very fortunate in this time and place to have such a good newsletter. Anyway.
Just to echo your comment, the lady that lives on 59th, her first name's Sarah. And I mentioned that to her, that we were planning on doing it. She doesn't have a computer. I also met an individual that lives very close to her on 59th, who is Irish, I guess. He was in a kilt at the time, and we had a conversation, and I mentioned the same thing to him, that we were probably going to have our newsletter out. So
Well, I think
anyway,
that
that's just-
it might be a little premature to say that we're planning to have it out. I think we really don't know at this point. I mean,
Right.
there will be one, but whether it's digital or whether it's hard copy we don't know.
Maybe I used the word hoping.
I mean, I think with our publisher being who it is, we don't have to worry about the availability of print medium. But is really just whether or not Helene and her group feel that they're ready to go out and do that. I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't see it as a problem. You don't have to interact with people to drop something on their doorstep, but that's me.
I did get one of the delivery people dropped by as I was picking peaches off my peach tree, and I was up like 10 feet in the air. I'm ready to deliver. I'm ready to deliver. It's like, what? Are you pregnant? No. But they really wanted to deliver newsletters.
Yeah, good.
Nice.
Again, I'm looking at the people that may not have access to the internet or a computer, and it's really important.
I agree.
Mm.
That is important. And there's a lot of folks that are typically a little bit older than us that don't necessarily have internet access.
I got to tell you, it's an interesting thing out here where we live now. Mobile home, it's an over 55 mobile home park, and almost everybody here has a smartphone and or a laptop and or a desktop.
There you go. Good.
The times they are changing.
They are changing.
They done changed, I think.
Okay. Are we done with communications?
I think so.
Yeah,
Unless anybody else can think of something I'm not remembering.
no,
Okay. Under land use, we've got a recommendation for Terry Parker to serve as our representative on the PBOT Freight Community Advisory Committee. And since it wasn't an emergency appointment, I felt obligated to bring it to the board to get their okay. And it actually, having a recommendation from the board carries so much more weight than just from a committee. So I think Terry would do a great job and do a service serving on this committee.
I think it sounds like a wonderful idea.
Now, what I looked at the application, in fact, I've got it on my computer now, not up, but their essay questions, probably short. For those of you that, why can't I think of her name? Anyway, I know who's running the show there. What's her name? I do this on names all the time, Tamara.
Where? At where?
At PBOT.
I don't know who it is.
Oh, you do, because I said it. She's been out with Zaf. I can think of her last name that I can't pronounce.
Okay, well.
But anyway, maybe it gives me a leg up. This is what the land use committee asked me to do because of Sandy. So as soon as the board says okay, I'll work on filling out the application.
Okay.
So one thing I want to address is if he's a RCPNA representative, then he's representing the entire community, the views of the entire community. I'm blown away by Terry's savant-like knowledge of transportation and land use things, but I also know he has a particular slant. And this is a community representative, and I want to make sure that that is considered when he represents Rose City Park and the various perspectives that residents of Rose City Park have, and they aren't all the same.
Okay.
That's a fair
So-
consideration, no matter who it is.
And just for the record, Francesca is who the person is. Took me a minute there.
Well, Terry, are you still up to it if you're representing cyclists?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, the committee has given me, the committee made a recommendation as far as the Sandy project, and pretty much that's what I would follow. I mean, you have sent a letter to, I've seen your letter as far as Sandy Boulevard is concerned, and that's pretty much what I would, that's what I would follow.
So Terry, are you aware that Jeff responded and said he couldn't accept the letter because it was too specific at this time? And,
No, I was not aware of that.
yeah. So Tamara, do you want to address that with Terry so he's aware? of-
Yeah, Zeph was fairly straightforward and said, listen, we can't accept this because you already preempt the consideration of use of the 4 lanes as for other types of modes of travel. And we can't do that in a planning process. And so that would include the insistence that all 4 lanes remain for vehicle use and that on-street parking has to remain. So those 2 things cut that letter out of consideration for being accepted.
I guess it doesn't surprise me because they've got according to Andre Baugh, who's former planning commission, they've got a predetermined thing that they want to take lanes away. Peabody.
Well, you have a predetermined idea that they're predetermined.
Well,
It's a difficult situation, Terry.
I
And that's why
understand
I'm
that.
concerned that you represent all the perspectives in the community
I understand that.
as unbiased and impartial. And that
Well,
I have a concern that if you are designated for the neighborhood association, that you're addressing all the neighborhood association concerns.
what I can tell you is that when I served on the 82nd Avenue committee, I got along with everybody, and I had the views that I expressed weren't necessarily agreeable by everybody. Some of their views wouldn't be agreeable to our neighborhood, but I got high marks from the people that were running the meetings, including ODOT.
Okay. So, do we have concerns about whether or not Terry represents the views of the?
It's up to you guys. I'm neutral on it. I'll do it if you want me to. If not, that's fine too.
I think this land use and transportation made this recommendation, you've taken those aspects into consideration. So I'd like to move to make this recommendation approved by the board.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Oh, were we done discussing?
I don't know.
Discussion happens after the second, typically in Robert's.
And just to let you know, I'm going to abstain because it's about me. So
Smart move.
just for that reason.
As you should.
Yes.
Okay, discussion.
Who was the second? Who was the
Kelly.
second? Kelly. Okay.
Jennifer, do you have any comment you'd like to add?
I guess because I'm not on the land use and transportation committee, it might be good to see if there was like, I kind of didn't follow the revision to the letter or the non-acceptance of the letter. And then I guess, to Ed's point, I don't know if there's a way to make sure that we capture kind of what our community's thoughts are on the Sandy project. So I just kind of have questions about kind of what are we trying to make sure is represented?
Well, it is a freight community advisory committee. So it's dealing with only freight. And the consideration that I have is that there's a lot of freight that goes through on Sandy Boulevard. There's also potential rail freight that could come from the spurs on the Union Pacific Rail into the industrial lands that are down by I-84. So there's quite a bit of freight movement, and I know that Halsey Street used to be a market road, and it's still used for carrying some freight. There is some concern about north-south routes, and right now 57th and 60th are kind of a complex one that bisect our neighborhood. And I think it carries some concern. But I know that Terry's issue is primarily with cyclists. So I felt that a freight committee could be a good middle ground for him to work on. That's my thought.
I liked what Richard said too. I mean, I think the land use committee knows Terry well, and I think if the land use committee felt that he was a good choice, then I don't think there's any reason to belabor the discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second.
So
Jeff, do you have anything to add?
I'm just going to say, I'm going to vote no. I think Terry could apply as an individual, but I'm not comfortable with representing the neighborhood association and all the different people on this particular committee. So I'll just say that, and we can move on to the
Call
vote.
the question.
Call the
Call the
question?
question.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign.
No,
Okay, motion passes.
And I abstain.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ed, for standing up for your what you think is right.
well, I'd be a damn fool if I didn't.
It is true. Okay, next on our list is a recommendation to TriMet for a transit center community safety zone, or some way in which we can bring heightened security to the areas that we've got between Halsey and 60th. And I've gotten a number of emails from Joe today. They are inundated right now with everything from the streetcar coming to the transit center, to also the redevelopment of the transit center that's going to happen over the next 2 years. So they actually don't have that many issues specific to what I was bringing up or we brought up. They will, in the redevelopment, it will have a bathroom on the base level, and it's going to be affordable housing at that location. The porta potties that are there now are just for the transit drivers. It's not for public. So
We're talking about the Hollywood Transit Station?
yes.
Okay.
And so that was one of the issues. She also gave me lots of information about who to contact if we have campers, who to contact in case there's needles, and a number of things like that. I also got a response from Bob Richardson. Those of you who may have been around for a while, Bob used to run the website for our neighborhood association, and he was a longtime member on our land use committee. He lives on 60th. So I reached out to him, see if he has any comments on this. This is just a quick response. We are supportive of additional lighting near the transit station. In particular, the vacant lot at the corner of 60th and Haslow, across from our property, has no mid-block street light and gunfire. No injuries yet. Drug activity, urination, litter, and vandalism, graffiti are all a problem on that lot. a street light approximately 2/3 of the way east of 59th on Haslow would be very helpful in that regard. An important note, due to economic conditions of COVID, there are a number of people living in RVs and cars in this area. Oftentimes 1 or 2 RVs per block face. For the most part, these people are peaceful. However, where multiple people congregate, there's an increase in litter, including used needles. Enforcement shouldn't focus on sweeps, but rather on mitigation, cleanup of the areas around RVs, and encouragement to space out the vehicles to no more than 1 camper per block face. Regarding restrooms at the TriMet facility, we are neutral on this and would like to see more information about the feasibility. The overpass is state property. The tracks possibly and the elevator are TriMet's. The substation is TriMet's, but what about the land adjacent, etc.? Anyway, thanks. So that's from him. And that's all I received to date on this, other than what's in our recommendation, which was, there was a lot more there as far as issues at that site or in that area based on what Michelle has experienced with the nuisance house next door. But for the point of this being a general area impact, I left the nuisance house out of it. Anyway, it's a concept. Thought I'd bring it up, bring it forward. Joe suggested that I reach out to North Tabor, where the folks just cross the way on 60th to see if they're interested. I think Terry did reach out to the other neighbors, and we got some response from Madison South. Is that right, Terry?
The response would have come to you, and I apologize for misspelling your name. Sometimes when I'm sitting here in my car trying to type, I'm not proofing it as well as I should. I do have one suggestion on the letter, though, that would go, and that would be to incorporate better lighting on 60th with the new sidewalks. I think that it's another way to express what we want when those new sidewalks go in. And I thought of that after the meeting, after the land use and transportation meeting, but to me, it's one that I've been working, and Steve Whittier, who is the facilities person at TriMet, basically agrees with that. I've got an original letter from him, and I actually had a second support letter from him. So,
well, it was just mainly suggestions, not specifics of lighting.
well, that's what I'm suggesting is that better lighting. I mean, yeah, I want to see pedestrian scale street lights, but whatever goes in ought to go in when the new sidewalks go in. So that's why I just suggested better lighting.
Yeah.
At this for your letter.
Yeah, that's what I've got in there.
Okay.
I have a question. What I'm seeing here is that all we're doing at this point is recommending the creation of the zones. But how is that going to, what is that going to mean? Okay, we've created a zone, now what?
So it goes, so Lynn, that's what I was gonna, we're on the same page here. Up on the recommendation to TriMet and other agencies, the enforcement of transit center. I think if you change that creation and enforcement, it captures an action.
Right, but then down in the body of it, I think there needs to be something added about the enforcement. I mean, I have no problem with the letter as it stands.
Right. Well, you can add that down below too. I think additions of both of those locations for creation and enforcement would get meet the aim of the recommendation.
Right, but do we need to spell out what we mean by enforcement? I mean, that can be interpreted about a zillion ways.
Well, I think the enforcement will be what the creation of the community safety zones comes up with.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, you know, if this passes, what I can do is run this letter by the board before it goes out. See if I've captured what you're thinking. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Do you want a motion at this time, Tam, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like a motion.
I move that recommendation of letter to TriMet and other agencies for the creation and enforcement of transit center area community safety zones be approved by the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association Board.
My turn to second.
Okay, got mutual seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Also in the list is the letter of support that was sent from the Land Use and Transportation Committee with the language saying, you know, we want full lane access kept and on-street parking kept, and that basically was rejected. The question I have of the board is whether or not you want me to go ahead and send that to Glenn Bolin, who was the person that was to receive this letter as a form of support for the grant, or if you feel it is too strongly worded, we can just let it be.
Well, I think at the last meeting when it came up initially and then was referred back to the Land Use Committee, expressed that this is a really 50,000 foot beginning on this process, and that getting down into the weeds and details was not appropriate at this time. So I don't know that Mr. Boland's going to receive it any differently than Mr. Wagner did at Peabot.
But
It kind
Mr.
of
Boland.
captures the feelings of the committee, and I guess I don't have a problem with it submitting it as it's currently shown.
So, okay, that goes back to the freight committee thing, Kelly, is that I think we should, if we're going to do this and it's a long-term, it's out there 10 years or so, I think we ought to have a process where the neighborhood has an opportunity to get involved in what the neighborhood association is going to recommend, not just the committee. If we're going to be inclusive and diverse and
No, I agree with that, but this letter essentially says, these are our initial thoughts, and we'd like to be included in the process all the way along.
Who is Mr. Boland?
He's the interim manager for ODOT.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. I don't have a problem with sending it to him. Because
Kelly,
if nothing else, it, I'll say, tips him off, for lack of better words, that ODOT has to be involved with this process.
so Kelly, I see your point, and I'd be fine if there was an inclusion that these are initial thoughts of the Land Use Transportation Committee, certainly not final thoughts of the community, and that we'll engage the community as the process evolves to get a fuller input from the members of the community, something like that.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I can include language like that in the email and just say that this is the initial thoughts and we look forward to participating in the future. as this project goes forward. How's that?
Well, and I think it's important you include that we will engage the entire community.
I also think that you might want to say that the fact that this was unanimous by the committee, if I remember correctly.
Committee of how many people? 4 or 5?
It does say that in the letter already, Terry.
Oh, does it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
All right, that's fine then.
Yep.
I'm
I
sorry.
think
I read it the other day and I'm just looking at part of it here.
Yep.
Got up.
In follow-up to Ed's.
Oh, yeah, it does say unanimously. Excuse me. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Terry?
In follow-up to Ed's comment, I don't think you want to say the entire community. I think you want to say the broader community, because we have no way of guaranteeing that we can reach the entire community or that we can involve them or something like that. Just something a little more slightly
fine.
less specific.
You could say Rose City Park community members or something. I don't know.
I'm fine with that, just to express that we're going to allow the opportunity for the entire community to participate, whether they choose
I
or
will
not.
say that this is pretty much the same thing that the last LUTOP meeting that I went to, which was basically about the Rose Lane project, pretty much came up with the same conclusion. And it was a face-to-face meeting before the COVID thing in January. And it was specifically called about Rose Lane and how it's going to affect Sandy. And
Terry, was there an action and a letter sent?
you'd have to follow up with Allison on that. I don't remember if there was or not.
Okay.
You want to follow up, Terry?
I can do that. I can call Allison. I haven't talked to her in a while.
That'd be good. Okay, so right now I've got somewhat of a motion to go ahead and proceed in publishing this letter to Glenn Boland on behalf of the neighborhood, with the understanding that that this is preliminary thoughts, and we look forward to a robust engagement of the entire community under the TGM leadership. That way it doesn't obligate us to do the public involvement, but it does, they will be a good partner.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. So do I have a vote on this?
Take the motion.
We have a motion.
Jennifer,
and a
did you see
second.
you made the motion?
You got a motion?
Who?
Jennifer, did you see that?
I asked for clarification. I thought Tamara said she had a motion and I didn't write down who that was.
No, I asked if we had a motion.
Okay, great. So I'm like right at the point where I'm gonna start taking notes.
Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion if you to send it if that's what you're looking for.
that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, passes. Okay. Next, events.
There's nothing.
Nothing.
Everything's in postponement.
Well, we need to talk about October,
The general meeting.
right? If we're going to have a general meeting,
Yeah.
and supposedly we'll have a general meeting, I don't know if we can have a vote if it's going to be virtual again. So I'm not sure if we've gotten any further along with that conundrum. We need to give the Walker Awards. The last general membership meeting went off really well as far as the response we got was so positive. So I'm open to ideas. It will be back to school time.
How many people did we have at the last Zoom meeting versus our last
In person.
person to person meeting?
We had like a handful of people show up on the Zoom meeting. So I don't know how many people have run it since. But those who participated, we got 2 written responses saying that they really enjoyed it.
And they were engaged. They were active.
So far, we have the Walker Award,
Well, the election maybe.
board election, maybe.
Possible board elections, yeah.
Speaker,
The new city commissioner?
We won't know yet.
That would either be Dan or Loretta.
yeah.
We have a new DA.
Yeah. I think I don't know about other people, but I have a little bit of concern there that people that commit crimes are basically going to be getting away with it.
A hot topic if we bring him on. I could bring Joanne Hardesty, see if she's open.
No,
Let's, glad you could share your opinion there, Terry.
uh,
Well,
Maybe
let's see. What will the status of the legislature be then?
Well, they're going to have a second special session here coming up pretty soon.
Right. Will it be done by October?
I would imagine the special sessions are typically only a few days.
Right.
I really like the idea of bringing on the new DA, to be honest with you. I think that's a good one, and or the new commissioner.
We won't have a new commissioner though.
Yes, we will. August 11th is filling in Nick's position.
Oh.
That's who we're talking about.
Ryan,
Either Dan Ryan or Loretta Smith.
Yeah. I guess in regards to the DA, Rose City Park is relatively crime-free compared to a lot of the neighborhoods. If you look at the statistics,
it is true.
I'm not sure the DA they might be inclined to go to somewhere that had more of a crime problem.
How about Rose City Park Elementary School principal?
Yeah.
Something to deal with the school.
Yeah, I like that idea. They're not going to, it's going to be online, right?
We don't know.
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh,
PPS.
You know, yes.
We do know.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think
Talking about school or our meeting?
School. It's
School.
digital learning at least through November 5th.
Yeah, okay.
Statewide.
I like that. It's local, it's relevant. People might, especially people with families with kids at school, might be interested in hearing from the principal and how it's going, what the challenges are, and they might have an opportunity to weigh in and ask some questions and express some thoughts.
I think that's a nice idea, but we also should balance it for those of us and who don't have any personal need and to know much of anything about the school.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, Lynn.
And I still
Well,
think the DA would be a good idea. I mean, if he's busy, he can say he's busy.
Yeah.
I think you should have an interest in the school because they're going to keep paying your Social Security checks once they graduate. So you should have real concerned that they're getting a good education.
Well, that's if they have
Good
jobs.
schools raise your property values, as much as we don't like to admit it.
Yeah.
Should we invite St. Rose too then?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Gregory
Principal from
Heights
St. Rose. We could hear from
or
both.
Roseway Heights too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the kids do what is it? The younger kids go to Roseway Heights. Is that right?
No, that's the middle school.
Okay. So it's just the opposite. All right.
So one would be Rose City Park principal and the other one Gregory Heights principal.
Roseway Heights.
Roseway Heights.
Roseway Heights.
And St. Rose.
I would like
Okay,
to
it's
say
gotten
that
really crowded already.
Well, what
They
about, if you're doing the schools, what about Grant?
Grant's not in our neighborhood.
It is for some of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. At
There's-
least
there's
the line
Roseway
used to
Heights.
be on
School isn't in our
57th.
neighborhood, right? The school itself is not in our neighborhood.
No, but that's where that's where a good portion of Rose City Park kids go to Grant.
And then you have Madison.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now there's more for Madison. They made the boundary at 47th.
It used to be 57th.
It's 47th now.
Is it 47th now?
Yeah.
There used to be a gray area. There isn't a gray area anymore.
Yeah.
I would think that in the interest of scope, reach out to Rose City Park Elementary, St. Rose, and Roseway. If you get an affirmative that they're willing to participate, I think that would be robust enough. If they don't, then maybe we look at the high schools.
Well, the question about, with the schools actually being within our boundaries, Roseby Heights is not within our boundaries.
But it's a feeder, we're a feeder school to it.
That's true. And then that's a feeder to the high schools. So, where are you going to draw the line?
I think at 13 years old and below, and 14 and above.
Why?
Just because.
I think the people,
If it's 13 years old and below, should we not also then include the Head Start?
yeah, Head Start, they're in our neighborhood.
I'm still thinking along the lines of Lynn. What do we have for the people that don't have kids?
The same thing that we have for people who don't have crime and don't care about the DA. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes there's things that resonate and sometimes there don't.
Right, but crime theoretically could impact all of us, whereas kids would not necessarily impact all of us. I mean, I care about kids in schools. My grandkids are in California, so the local schools are less important to me.
But one of the things that I heard about today was Portland Public Schools possibly including childcare.
I heard that too.
$1,000 a month.
That's through the independent third-party childcare providers that are on site. And it's $1,000 per child per month.
Per month. Wow.
What?
And they might be limited to 15 children.
Well, that's helpful.
There's 600 students at Rose City Park Elementary, just for reference.
Wow. So, I mean,
Jennifer, two components. of
this
Rose City
does
Park.
bring out the whole sense of a community issue. How can people get back to work if their kids are at home attending school online? So,
I have a question regarding the number of schools we're adding, and then we're adding more and more people and voices. But what is the big difference going to be between Rose City Park and Roseway? As an example, yeah, the kids are different ages, but what's the big difference going to be? Are they? I mean, they're all going to be learning electronically to start out with anyway.
Just throw this
At
back
least the way
at
I
you, Terry.
understand it.
Let me just throw this back at you. Do you think that there's any difference in digital learning for a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old?
What was the other age? I didn't hear it.
5 and 15.
5 and 15. Okay. Well, 15 is high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that they might have different impacts? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
one can
yeah,
read.
yeah, I do. But we haven't included the high schools here yet.
Or 13. I mean, I actually am a little ambivalent about it being about schools because I think that they're under a lot of scrutiny right now, and they'll be fielding a lot through the PTO that might be directed at, you know, like kind of how digital learning is going. And there are a lot of schools, right? So there's not just our neighborhood elementary school that's right here in the middle, but there are people that send their kids to private school or other PPS schools. There's the high school students, there's community college students. I mean, it's quite a diverse spectrum there. But it's an interesting topic. You know, if you're counting students that are coming out of our neighborhood, you're probably well over 1,000. So that's a big portion of our residents to think about. If each of those students has a parent, that's a lot of that's a lot of adults in our neighborhood that it might be important to. I'm just gonna play both sides of it. It's a pretty big deal. And to Tamara's, you know, question, like, what do parents do if they have kids that are learning at home? It's the question of the year. It's in the New York Times like every day. Like, what do parents do?
I wonder if that might be a more germane topic and you know, looking at it productively as to what kind of answers should people come up with to cope with the ongoing kids at home and now the increasing or decreasing amount of unemployment that's available, barring the who knows what. Because I think those are going to be topics that are going to be of more general interest, I think, and certainly very specific interest to the people who are directly affected.
So should this be a panel discussion? Or are we even inviting the right people?
Well, we have another board meeting next September to finalize this. Maybe we ought to reach out to these folks to see if they're even interested in participating.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Another thought is that, you know, I would think that any of the public school principals would know what's going on either above or below them at the other schools. I mean, I don't think that they would just be knowing exactly what Rose City's doing or Roseway Heights or whatnot. I mean, I think it would be so I'm questioning, and I guess I'm questioning, why do we have so many from the same kind of PPS?
We have two from PPS.
We have two, yeah. But when we start adding the others in, we've got a lot of voices there.
They're all relevant. They're all diverse. They're all inclusive.
I mean, the nice thing about this selection is if you have Head Start that focuses on low income, you know, kids that need extra support. You have Rose City Park, which has our Vietnamese immersion program embedded within it. Roseway Heights will have its first year of the immersion program, but it is one of the more diverse schools in PPS. You have St. Rose, if you include them, that's a private school. They have different rules because they're beholden to the Catholic schools, archdiocese rules, which are, you know, a little bit different. You know, there is some diversity in what folks are going to be doing with that group and who they're representing, their students, and the problems that probably are faced by the families associated there.
You're breaking up on me, Jennifer. Can you speak higher?
Yeah, I was losing you too.
No. I'm just saying, like, you know, this is not like this is for. This is not like the 20 mayoral candidates or anything like that. It's for, and they have it's a pretty diverse selection. You know, you have a private school, you have a, you know, Head Start, which is, you know, low income early education. You have a public elementary with an immersion program, and you have a diverse middle school. Like that's a,
No, we don't
I mean,
have.
that's probably the best cross section in the city.
Well, if we want to, if we want to walk the talk of our earlier item about the committee that's forming to address diversity and inclusivity, I think this is walking the talk right here.
Right. And you had mentioned that Roseway Heights is a diverse school or is immersion school? I couldn't.
It's both.
Okay.
So
Immersion with what?
Vietnamese. It's the continuation of the elementary program. They've extended it for the first time to the 6th grade.
And what ages are Roseway Heights and Rose City Park now? Or what grades?
Rose City
Roseway
Park,
Heights is 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. And Rose City Park is up to 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay, great. Okay. If that's a good direction for everyone, should we take a vote on it or just?
should we
I-
try to explore whether or not they feel comfortable in that
Yeah.
before we try to commit them to it? I mean, I think we should
I
ask.
think we should check to see if they're amenable to coming and then issue an invitation to them and see what happens.
Keep in mind that if we are going to go with a hard copy newsletter for October, that I will have to get that going right away in September. So,
Yeah.
You know, I forget the date of our meeting, but it's obviously the first Tuesday. So, in fact, I think it's the first, but I will need to get something pretty quickly after that. If we're going to do hard copy, or if we end up deciding that we need to do it, you know, I mean, we can always do a special issue if we need to, but
Okay.
So I've got a good relationship with the Head Start folks and Father Matt over at St. Rose. I'll reach out to them. Jennifer, do you want to talk to, I can't remember his name, Cohen?
Yes,
Over at,
and I can probably get the middle school principal.
you'll get both of them?
I think the middle school principal used to be, used to work with Jeremy.
Okay.
So Ed, you've got Head Start in St. Rose, and so Jennifer, you have Gregory Heights and Rose City Park.
Yeah, it's Roseway Heights. I always mess that up. The building says Gregory on it, but it's Roseway Heights.
Roseway Heights. Well, how about, don't we have the Rose City Park Elementary?
Yeah, I got that one.
Jennifer's got that.
Okay. Got it. All right. What else do we have? We have Safety Committee and Don isn't here. We have Rose City Park Playground Project and Joe's not here.